on to the main event, and that is the huge new first-party Xbox release this week, Hellblade II: Senua's Saga. So, Hellblade. I'm gonna talk about my thoughts on the game, and then I'm just gonna talk a little bit about some of the discourse that's been in the news or online. Hellblade. So I really enjoyed the first one. I wasn't like personally blown away, like mind blown or anything like that. I played it at the start of this year, in kind of preparation for the sequel, and I wasn't massively blown away. I think I found some sections a little bit overlong and annoying. I remember the bit where you're underground in the dark caves trying to get through pitch black, right? That bit really, really wound me up. But I came out of it feeling like, okay, this is a game that kind of demands to be experienced purely based off, what they're doing with the character and the themes and their whole intention they're trying to get across about, psychosis and mental health. It was definitely like a much welcomed change of pace and intention from most of the other games, like out there, like now or in the past. So I came away from it like massively appreciating it, what it is, and feeling like I would absolutely encourage people to experience it if you are a video game fan. So going into the sequel, which came out this week, I was very aware. The main thing I was aware of is I'd heard that it's going to be more of the same. They got a bit more money from Microsoft, so they're really going to like pour a lot into the technology and the graphics and stuff like that, and produce something that advances on the original. But they still wanted to keep the indie sensibility, right? And I'm pretty sure, isn't the sort of catchy phrase that's going around, is it indie AAA? That's what they're calling Hellblade 2, because technically they're not indie because they're owned by Microsoft now, so they can't be, but they were allowed to kind of keep their small team and do what they can, just kind of Microsoft be basically hands off and them do what they want, for better or worse. So going into it, I was aware of all that. My thoughts on, I finished it, I played it. My thoughts on the game are so quite varied. I think this is not going to be like an in-depth review or anything like that, but I'll just talk about it. So I played it over a couple of nights, I think, maybe 3 evenings. And I think, I suppose my first reaction is it's really good. It's really fucking good. That is my no context, no caveat reaction. This is awesome. I think if you like the first one, you will like this one for the most part. It is effectively more of the same, but in certain ways just kind of cranked up a little bit. The intentions are different, the stories are different, the story is different. So thinking about it like from a gameplay perspective, it is very simple. It's very straightforward. It's a lot of walking and moving forward and exploring, finding like totems and secret paths, finding the correct path to go through, lighting torches, putting torches out, solving symbol puzzles. You use these weird kind of reality altering orbs which turn the location upside down and move rocks out the way and like move obstructions and put them back. So yeah, there's like light puzzling. There is, of course, the combat, which is very similar to the original. They've tweaked it slightly and added this kind of parry, which I don't believe was in the original, but it's a very small thing. And to be honest, I did not even use the parry until like the last 2 combat sequences of the game. But yeah, you obviously, it's moving across the landscapes and through each area that you go. You're sometimes with other people. The game does things to sort of twist your mind and trick you, and you go through paths and then they change. And yeah, it's more of what the original did, but in little ways kind of cranked up and tweaked and changed in a way. The story is more of this time, rather than kind of being focused on Senua's personal journey, it's more about people that she's trying to help, a sort of broader group of people, and whether she's the right person to do that. Is she making the right choices? Is she being guided? Is it her destiny? Is she good? Is she bad? So yeah, there's a lot of questions there. And then of course, like the big one, presentation, yeah, graphics and audio. It's some of the best, and in some aspects it is the best graphics and presentation you will see in a video game. It pushes, it does everything it possibly can with the engine and it's Unreal Engine, right? To produce something that effectively looks photorealistic for the most part. I mean, it still isn't photorealistic. It pretty much is there, but it takes. This is very close to that Matrix thing we saw a few years ago, right? That demo where you had people from the Matrix, and that looked photorealistic. I mean, it just did. There's no. That's like the best thing I've ever seen. This is very, very close to that, but it still at times does feel like a video game, particularly when water is involved. The water looks very video gamey. But yeah, so that's setting what the game is as a whole. Now, what did I enjoy about it? I think pretty much everything. Here's the thing. This is what it is. Okay. First, I'm just going to talk about. So the combat, like I said, it's presented in a simple fashion, but I just think the combat is so visceral. Like the combat that's on display, the nature of it is so visceral that you feel every single hit, every single punch, sword, slash, and you feel every emotion in the characters as this is happening, because you can see it in their face and the way it's presented. So it makes the combat so thrilling, and although it's very different and stripped back to the combat of most video games, this is doing something else. And yeah, I've seen people call the combat like bad, and it's just I can't really wrap my head around that. It's not bad, it's very different, it is stripped back, but because of everything else the game does around it, I feel as immersed, and as this combat feels as impactful as any combat, and in some cases more thrilling than the combat in some other games. So yeah, and because of the way what it's doing visually and presentation wise, you feel as you're in the middle of the combat, you really do feel and hear the rain, the fire, like the mud you're stepping in and stuff. It's the grunts, the screams from Senua and the enemies, and the sword plunging into bodies and clanging together. Like, it's so meticulously well done that I haven't really seen anything like this in a video game outside of a cutscene. And the combat is basically, it's spread across like 3 buttons. You've got like a dodge button, a quick melee, and a strong melee. And then, like I say, you've got that parry as well, which does help. And then you've got the same mechanic from the first one, where you kind of build up a little focus meter, and then you can kind of unleash a flurry of attacks and take the enemy out. So yeah, the combat to me I thought was fantastic. You feel every single hit, and that cannot be ignored. Story wise, I don't love the story. I'm like, personally, it wasn't massively my bag, but there's this. The main thing is she's trying to save these people from these giants that are terrorizing the lands, right? That is really fucking cool, and that did engage me. the story is, and the narrative and the characters and what Senua is thinking is such a huge integral part of this game. And if you're not kind of fully locked into that, you're probably not going to get much out of this game at all, even when I just talked about how good the combat is. The story's good. Like, I think you do really need to be in the mood for it. I locked myself in for this, and I did really appreciate it. It didn't, there's nothing making me cry or really kind of question my own choices in life and stuff like that. But it is good. I think just this game works so well in tandem with itself and what it's doing. It's very easy to sit here and break down the combat and the story and the visuals and separate them and go, oh, the visuals are amazing, but yeah, the combat is stripped back and poor and bad and the story's boring. But the thing that this game is doing better than so many other games do, and some games don't even care about, is the way that the combat is working off of the visuals and the story is working off of the audio. And yeah, it's so intertwined and so kind of expertly put together, in my opinion, that it just did kind of blow me away. The first one did not blow me away. This one definitely did. There's sequences and set pieces in here that are some of the best I've seen, like, in anything. Doesn't mean it's my favorite experience, but I was watching it in awe. Like, it's just so incredibly well done. And all those things kind of talking to each other and working well together. So I've seen people saying it's like 4 hours long. It's not 4 hours long. I think my final playthrough is, let's just check my stats now on my Xbox app. Blah, 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 blah. Let's have a look. Games. Wow, this is being slow. Games. Where the hell? Here we go. Hellblade. 11 hours, 18 minutes. That's my final playtime on Senua's Saga. Now, you could probably take 45 minutes of that 11 hours and 18 minutes and just add it to photo mode. The photo mode in this game is one of the best photo modes in a game ever. I think the game almost encourages you to just use it because it wants you to stop and appreciate the emotion on the faces and the stuff that's happening in the moment. So I used it a lot. It easily locked into that for 45 minutes, maybe pushing an hour, at most an hour. I took lots of screenshots. So yeah, 11 hours, 18 minutes. It's not a 5 hour game. The people who are finishing this game in 5 hours are sprinting from start to finish, never stopping to take a breath. They're speedrunning it. They are absolutely speedrunning it. I presume like 4 to 5 hours is the fastest you can complete it in, because there's a lot of locked sequences and you can't skip the cutscenes. So it's not like Resident Evil 2 Remake, which I used to speedrun. You can finish that in an hour if you're really quick, if you're speedrunning it. But yeah, so this is not a 4 or 5 hour game if you're actually playing it at a steady pace and taking a moment to listen and look and explore, which the game sort of wants you to do, because there is stuff to be found, there's secrets to be found, there's story to be found, and some people don't want to do that. Some people just want to mainline stuff. I talked about how I mainlined Jedi Survivor. Yeah, but that's because I didn't want to play 100 hours of Jedi Survivor. I knew that Hellblade 2 wasn't going to be 100 hours, so I was like, yeah, I can take my time with this. I can stop by the cliffs and appreciate the view, go and have a look at some of the surroundings, the settings, walk into buildings, because there's some buildings you can go into and things you can climb where there is nothing. There is nothing but a view to see and something to look at. So think of that what you will. Some people think that's pointless, but it's all part of the world building, and if you want to immerse yourself, I think that stuff is there. So I explored every nook and cranny, took my time, and yeah, I'm looking at 11 hours finished playtime. So yeah, people saying it's a 4 or 5 hour game, it's just, I don't know how they're playing it. I really, really don't. They are, like I said, they're just sprinting through, which, I don't know, that's kind of a disservice to the game, but if that's what you want to do, go for it. So yeah, I don't know, why did I get onto playtime? Yeah, just people talking about it being short. So it's not that short. It is brief by most game standards, but that's kind of not the point of this game. I really came away enjoying it. I think it does things that, and I've seen a few people say this, so I'm not the only one saying this. Hellblade 2 definitely does things, I think, that push the video game media forward. And progress is never, it's not always pretty. It's not always, to get from like one area to another and development, and that's with anything. When you're building something, when you're something socially, so something health wise, and with films and TV and media and art, progress and making progress and developing and pushing the mediums and pushing it forward and taking it to a new place, it's never clear cut. And I think it's not always apparent that that's what's happening when it's happening. This game, it's pushing things forward for how combat might be done in a game, but it's obviously more than anything, I think, just as a visual and auditory experience that isn't VR. This is not a VR game, but it's as close as you can get to VR without putting goggles on, because of how well that presentation is, how well it's done. At least I think, anyway. So yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, progress, it's not always pretty. It's not always immediately apparent that that's what's happening. But I think that is what Hellblade 2 is doing for aspects of the medium. It's pushing things forward, and in kind of incredible, jaw-dropping ways. And in the future, you're going to see games that look and feel like this game, but with more complex systems and mechanics, That's what's going to happen, because we're getting to the point now where technology can do this. Hellblade is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's doing it before anyone else. So nobody's done presentation like this, really. It's, there's some out there that's really good cinematic presentation, but this is real-time presentation as well. It's not just cutscenes. It's all happening in the game, and it's kind of unbelievable that they've pulled it off. So yeah, what's the kind of the price of progression is Hellblade 2. This is what you get. You get a game that's not necessarily pleasing everyone, but it is doing what it set out to do. And I think, for me, I can recognize the intentions here, and I think it's clear that they have achieved what they wanted to do. This is the developer's game. It's like it or not, this is what it is. Is it my favorite thing I've ever played? No. Is it my favorite thing I've played this year? No. Is it incredible? Yes. Yeah, those things can be true. And yeah, there's a lot of people shitting on this game, and so that's why I just wanted to kind of lead myself into some of the discourse, because I think because I played this game, and I've obviously kind of talked about my thoughts here, and for me it's been a little bit painful to see people tear apart the game for something it isn't rather than what it is. And this is a trend, people do this all the time. They're really annoyed and frustrated that, Welcome to Raccoon City, the Resident Evil film, isn't what they wanted. So, yeah. So they cry about it. That's just me wanting to get my Welcome to Raccoon City reference in. Starfield, there we go. I always mention Starfield. People were annoyed that it wasn't Fallout and Skyrim. Oh no, sorry, it's not those things. Guess what? Go and play Fallout and Skyrim. Starfield's doing something else. Hellblade is doing something else. It's doing what it wants to do. It's doing stuff that's different to the first game. It is doing things that are different, particularly with the story. But I think, and I said this in my tweet, where I'm doing like a Twitter thread where I'm logging every game that I complete this year. What did I say? The point I was going to get to was about what the game's doing and what it does for Senua. So here we go. Game 25 complete this year is Hellblade II Senua Saga. It has aspects that push the medium forward, a captivating experience which shifts the intentions of its predecessor and establishes Senua alongside the most interesting video game protagonists ever. That's my thoughts on it. And I think this is the credit this is where the game deserves credit. Senua is so different to, your average video game protagonists. And there's questions about, is she a protagonist even? Maybe she is an antagonist in some ways, but I think she's probably a good guy, just for the record. yeah, so I think it's landed in a place that they've clearly done what they want to do, and they're establishing Senua, they're establishing the IP. You know, they could build off this in so many different ways with books and other games and things. But yeah, the discourse around it is, oh, it's really short. Oh, the combat's really dull and boring, and it's just like, oh, it's just a walking simulator, and it's just, I just want to pull my fucking hair out, because this game is, you know, do we want games to be taken seriously as art, or don't we? And I don't want to hear people trying to say, yeah, but the video game medium has to do this and has to do that. And, you know, I want it to be considered as art, but I want treasure chests, I want dungeons, I want extra lives, I want waypoints, or I want, you know, dialogue choices, and then I can consider it's art. And it's like, no, you can't have it both ways. You either want video games to be taken seriously as art, or you don't. You just want video games to be a way that you want them to be. This is absolutely like a masterful piece of art. Does that mean it's going to float your boat? No, of course not. And it is every bit of video game as is God of War, The Last of Us, you know, Forza Motorsport. I'm just listing random games off. Little Kitty, Big City, Viva Pinata. Hellblade is every much a video game as those games. It's doing its own thing, and I think huge points. It deserves huge points for unapologetically doing its own thing. Is it going to be for everyone? No. I think the game has been broadly praised, rightly so, but like I say, there's just been some weird takes and discourse, like really calling it out as like terrible and dull and boring and awful. And it's like, yeah, if it's not for you, but I've seen some more mean-spirited takes, and it's like, it's that thing again where we talk about new IP and things doing new things, and people are like, yeah, we want new stuff and we want games to do new things and stuff, and then something comes out that does new things or does something different, and they're like, oh no, but I don't want that, I want it to be this other way. And it's just, yeah, well, I don't know, I'm not sure what people do. I'm not sure people do know what they want sometimes. So as I say, for me, I can recognize what they're doing here. I can recognize that this is absolutely an artful experience. It is a video game that's doing things for video games that other games have not done. And masterfully so. You know, there's no bugs, there's no glitches, it runs well. It's like, yeah, there's the other thing, right? How many fucking games coming out that just don't even work? This works flawlessly, start to finish. Huge credit to Ninja Theory for this and for getting it out. Yeah. What a game. It's their game, and it sounds like they've had their next project greenlit as well, so it's like, cool, maybe we're going to get more of this or something else, maybe they're going to try something different. But yeah, just because a game doesn't have, you know, those things I mentioned, you know, oh, we don't have different equipment that I can wear and different weapons that I can choose, and I can't do a combat combination of pressing 10 different buttons that executes a big finishing move or something like that. It's like, it doesn't matter that Hellblade 2 doesn't have any of that. It has what it has, and you either enjoy it or you don't. But I don't know. I feel like I feel like I can come off as one of these people that's like trying to make excuses for bad things, and it's unfairly. And I know it's an Xbox game, and some people think that I'm an Xbox fanboy. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. I just happen to play everything on Xbox. If I thought this game was bad, I would say it's bad. I think it's amazing. I think they need their props for this, and it frustrates me that, and this is just like, I need to say, you just have to ignore, even if you ignore the like, console warrior types online who kind of wave around meta scores like they're a definitive proof of success or failure. There was just really odd takes from like publications, journalists, again too, we keep seeing this, and surprising takes from people. Big content channels promoting the discourse in their thumbnails, and it's like calling the game, adding the words, putting the words like failure and disappointment on thumbnails next to Hellblade 2. You're not helping anyone. It's not helping anyone. It's not, I was going to say objective. That's not the right word. It's not tasteful. I don't know. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It just feels like it's not productive. There we go. It's not productive. It's just feeding the nonsense on social media, because it is nonsense. And anyone with sense, even reviewers who may not have reviewed it as highly, have said, you can appreciate what they're doing here. It's just not for me. It's like, cool. But, to like say that this game is trash and it's like a 3 out of 10 and stuff like that, it's just, come on. What planet are these people on? And yeah, the feeding of the toxicity and encouraging and feeding the hate towards it and trashing, I just don't get. Because this is a fantastic game. It's a fantastic work of art. It's not going to be for everyone. I think it's a great achievement. I loved it. Am I going to play it again? Probably not. Probably not. I may play it again in a few years' time or something like that. May, when my son's older, show it to him or something like that. Show him where video games were and, to where they are when he's older. But I got what they're doing, and just huge credit to them. Like, it's an amazing game. It's an amazing game for what it is, and people need to recognize it for what it is and not what it isn't. This is so important. I just wish more people could do this. I feel like there's just people out there that just don't like anything. All they're doing constantly is just negative. Why wasn't it this? Why wasn't it as good as that? Why is it not what I want? And it's like, what do you like? What do you want? Do you just like playing, do you just like playing shoot 'em ups? Do you just like playing, RPGs? Yeah, cool. Go play them. Don't play Hellblade then. It's not for you. And I've seen some people say, "Oh, I really liked the original, but this one's trash." That I don't understand that. That's maybe the most confusing thing for me. I think this improves on the original in pretty much every way. I mentioned at the start how I thought some parts of the original were overlong, and it overstayed its welcome. This didn't. Felt like they did trimming here and kept things moving. The pace was so much better. The combat is just incredibly cinematic, visceral. You feel everything. It's thrilling. And the combat, the buttons are stripped back. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I feel like Frank Grimes from The Simpsons sometimes, where it's just like, why can nobody see this? But, it's funny. It's funny, subjective old industry. But yeah. And I think a lot of this is just not, an accurate representation of the true opinions of the game. Like, I'm mainly talking about stuff I see on Twitter, and we know Twitter is bullshit and it's an echo chamber, and yeah. But I just don't like it when I see that go so widespread that even the people that are on Twitter won't give something a chance because the trendy thing at the moment is to trash something. Yeah. And I think Hellblade 2 is being broadly praised, but yeah, just some really weird stuff about it, and I don't get it. I don't get it because it's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic.